Hi, and welcome to Moments of Magic. Tonight we're recording again because of our busy social schedule. So, Bob has a story about hope and about help, and I have a few things to add. So, if you want to just start.
So we were doing a show by Kenosha, Wisconsin over the weekend, and people were coming and going, and it was a sort of a normal show. It was small, it was kind of very polite, and about halfway through the show, this little pod of people showed up. I think there were like three women and a younger man, and they were looking at the stones. And they were wandering around the table, and they were commenting with each other. And I was sort of like, you know, I was trying not to hover, but I was also trying to be there in case they had questions. And at one point, there was a younger woman, and she picked up a I can't even remember what it was, some kind of a stone, and she was just smiling. She had this like really happy, just kind of happy smile. And I looked at her. I said, "Well, do you have any questions?" And she didn't really answer right away. And then finally she says, "Well, what is this?" And so I told her what it was, and she smiled this big smile, and she set it down. She picked up another stone. She looked at that, and she set that down. And then the other people that were with her turned and started walking away. So she actually went with them. So she left. And I thought, well, okay, well, that's sort of normal. And about, I don't know, like half an hour, 40 minutes later, she came back. She came back by herself to start. And she wasn't very talkative. And I got the distinct impression that maybe she was suffering with like an injury or something, but she was smiling. She had this beatific smile. And I asked her how she was, and we were sort of like, I was chatting at her. She wasn't really saying anything. It was kind of weird. And finally the other two people came along, and they were talking to her off to the side, and one of the women said, "Well, you don't have money for that." And so they're looking around at the money. And I asked her again if she needed any help or if she wanted any information or anything, and she was just smiling at me. And so finally, I picked up this little rock from the back of the table, and I walked around out to the outside of the booth, and I said, "Here, why don't you try this? These are only like they were minimal amount of money." And I held it out to her so she could put it in her hand. She said, "Well, I can't move my arm." I thought, oh, and so she had a jacket on it. She stuck her hand out of the top of the jacket. So I put the stone in there, and you wouldn't have believed the look on her face. It was just, she was so happy, and I mean, it just sort of like changed her whole day. And then I went back around the table, and by the time I got around back to the table, they were all gone. That was kind of weird. And it occurred to me after a while that there might have been something amiss there, um, obviously physically, because her arm was hurt, and maybe I don't know, maybe there was something wrong with her, but she was so happy to have been seen, and to have somebody talk to her, because everybody was talking to the people she was with and not to her, and the people she was with weren't talking to her except to tell her, no, you can't have that. That it struck me, that sometimes it's really hard to ask people if they need help, because it's embarrassing to you, and you think it might be embarrassing to them. And then it occurred to me that, it's hard for me to ask for help, because I might be intruding on somebody, or I might be asking more of them than they were able to give. And so from that little interchange with that young woman, who was, I have to believe that she was, like impaired in some way. I mean, she wasn't. I think just like mentally impaired a little bit, and she was so happy just to be seen that it just made me rethink a lot of things. And for me, it was just a tiny little moment of human connection magic.
And it is so important to be seen. And so, and I got nothing. I got no magic this week. And sometimes the magic eludes you. Although I did read one of my favorite astrologers, Rob Breshny, had a few quotes from Audre Lorde, the poet, in his newsletter this week, and I wanted to just read a couple of them because I think they're particularly pertinent to this time, and really gathering the people you love around you is also so important, or reaching out to those people even if you don't know them in some sort of kindness and compassion. So the first quote is, "Each time you love as deeply as if it were forever." And that is a really important thing to remember. And the other thing is, and this one is particularly potent, pain is important. How we evade it, how we succumb to it, how we deal with it, how we transcend it. Pain will always either change or stop. The confidence that it will change is what makes bearing it possible. So pain is fluid. It is only when you conceive of it as something static that it is unbearable. So that gave me a little bit of hope for some change that can occur in the pain of this time. So I hope you enjoyed these moments of magic, and we will have a live sale this weekend at 2 p.m. Central Time. Just some gift giving, gifts from the light. So I hope you can join us, and thank you for watching.
And, remember to don't be afraid to ask people if they need help, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. And notice people from time to time.